총 공격을 시작.
바람을 타고 구름이 가도
장수를 감상한 뜨끈뜨끈한
안녕하요.
상처 따위.
바람을 타고 구름이 쏟고 기러기가 오네. 일어나라. What the flip?
Hey guys, so initially I was going to make a video where I tested all of the different weapons that I had available, and I had quite a few weapons for him to show all the different numbers. But when I ended up starting doing that, the video was going to be extremely long. If you guys would like to see all of the testing that I did in some other video, please leave that in the comment section below and maybe I can get that video posted. But the video just dragged on and was way too long. So instead of doing that, I will just be going over my thoughts after all the testing on the different weapons and builds that I would use with each of those respective weapons. So let's just go straight into it. So Kazuha is a jack of all trades. You can use him as a main support, like a support, a burst DPS, or a main DPS. I believe his best roles are support and burst DPS, but you can run him as a main DPS. He does have some cliche builds, but let's go straight into it. So I believe that your build will ideally choose your weapon unless you have like his two best 5-star weapons. Those two best 5-star weapons being the Jade Cutter and the Song Sword, which is his basically his own boosted sword that's on his current banner. But anyways, let's go straight to his builds. So one of the most popular and probably the most I will say the most flexible build is the 4-piece VV, right? With this set, you increase swirl, but there are a couple different builds that you can do with this 4-piece VV, and that depends on what you choose for your sands, your goblet, and your circlet. So if you are going full on support, my advice is to run a elementary mastery sands, a elementary mastery goblet, and an elementary mastery circlet, right? So essentially what your build will look like is everything will be elementary mastery. You're not going to worry about your crit damage too much. What you're mainly going to be focused on is elementary mastery stats, as well as energy recharge stats. Those would probably be your most priority. Anything on top of that is kind of like a bonus or icing on the cake, right? Okay. Another artifact set I wanted to point out is the 2-piece VV, 2-piece Wanderers, right? So with this, you get a plus 80 to your elementary mastery, and you also get the 15% animo damage. It's a nice mixture build. I don't know if I would say it's as good as the 4-piece VV, right? But if you already have a character that's on your comp that's using 4-piece VV, this is a very good strat if you're going for a lot of elementary mastery. So let's see, like with this, I'm up in the 900s. Another build that you could do is the 2-piece Noblesse 2-piece VV. With this, it'll give you a little bit more juice to your burst, but only on the initial hits. And you still get that animo damage bonus. I do not believe this build is as strong as the others, but it is still an option that you could run. Now, if you're going full on support, I can't help but to emphasize the importance of running just an EM weapon, right? You have the Alley Sword, right? Or the Iron Sting. Now, the Iron Sting has a higher, from what I understand, a higher elementary mastery substat than the Alley Flash, right? So you'd probably most likely want to run this. Another option is if you end up having energy recharge problems, you can run a Skyward or the Sacrificial. Both of those are really good, as well as the Favonius. But from what I've been having, I'm not having any energy recharge problems with him. I find that having around over 130 is really nice. And anything over 130 kind of just makes it even easier. 170 is kind of overkill when it comes to energy recharge, but you're gonna have to just see what your own team is like. If you have characters that have like Favonius weapons, you're not gonna have any energy reprop. All right, now that we have his support build, right, let's go into his Sub-Dps build, right? Okay, so for Sub-Dps, it's a little different, and this is the position that I like to use for him the most, right? So when you do Sub-Dps, what I would switch is I would continue to have an elementary mastery stance. I like the boost that it gives to your team. When you're doing Sub-Dps, you're probably going to have another DPS on that team, or somebody that's going to be dishing out a lot of damage as well, and this helps boost them, right? So I would not run the elementary mastery goblet though. This is where I will switch. I'll switch to a animo damage bonus goblet. Preferably you'd like to have some decent stats. I've got some elementary mastery on that substat, and depending on your weapon, right, you'll either do crit rate or crit damage. So I will go with a crit rate, which is always a safe bet right here. And with that, I do have the freedom to choose another piece. But when you do that build, now when it comes to weapons, you have more options, right? The gate's kind of open. There's a lot more options and a lot of... This is where the testing got tricky for me, okay? So it depends on how much you want to boost your other DPS member. But if you want to boost your team member more, you would use the EM weapon, right? Iron Sting's great. But if you want to see more damage numbers for yourself, what you could run is Black Sword is probably the safest bet, which gives you crit rate. With this, you could probably use a crit damage circlet or however, and you could build your crit damage crit rate ratio so that you get higher animo damage on his plunges and his ult. Another option is the Aquila Favonia, which provides a large amount of attack, right? Your attack will increase by quite a bit significantly, as well as providing some physical damage on his normals. You could also on the Skyward Blade, which has a good base attack as well, and ER. But I don't find that one as good as these, because I don't really need the ER. Another option, sleeper pick, is the Lion's Roar. But this one's kind of more comp specific. I like to run this when I run like mono pyro or mono electro. Really fun in those comps, and probably one of his strongest solo DPS weapons. Now, of course, if you have Jade Cutter or Song of whatever, Sword of Song, whatever it's called, I don't even know what it's called, those would be your go-to picks, right? Now, I don't have those weapons, unfortunately, but I would probably go Jade Cutter, honestly, because the crit rate you get from that is ridiculous. All the other kind of weapons, I would kind of just pass. I mean, you could probably go with Prototype and all these other ones, but they won't perform as well. There is Festering Desire, which will give you a good initial hit on your plunge, but not good on the second hit as much. But it's alright. It's an option. It has energy recharge, but it doesn't do as well as these others, based off of what I've been doing. Okay. Now we'll move on to a main DPS. Okay, so main DPS is not going to be as popular, and it is probably his weaker of the three roles that he can do, right? So with main DPS, what I would do is switch to an attack percent goblet. Keep an animo goblet and a crit rate, crit damage circlet. And what you're going to prioritize is, well, you're going to have crit rate, crit damage, and elementary mastery kind of on. You're going to want those on your stats, as well as energy recharge. This build is a lot harder. Now, you do have a couple options. You can go 4-piece VV, or you could do basically what you would do with Zhao, right? And so that would be a 2-piece VV, 2-piece Gladiator, right? This won't be it won't have as much team synergy, but if you already have a team member that is running 4-piece VV, then this is definitely a good option. I do know some friends that have that problem. And with this, you can achieve some pretty good stats. But essentially, that's the same thing that Zhao runs for his DPS, right? Now, another alternative, right? And it's kind of jank. Now, this is very situational, right? I don't want to advocate for everybody to do this. But if you have Lava Walker pieces, you can do full-blown Lava Walker. So let me just show you real quick what that looks like. So I have 2 circlets here. And so with the 4-piece Lava Walker, you're going to want him to run him in a Pyro Mono team. Meaning you're going to want his ult to be infused with Pyro. And so with this, you have increased damage against those that are affected by Pyro by 35%, which is quite a bit. With this, I also like to switch my weapon to the Lion's Roar. I think this is where the Lion's Roar really shines. Now, I only have R2, but if you have R5, it'll shine even more. And if you have good ratios, like if you have some pretty decent Lava Walker pieces, this might be a build for you. This works really well and is currently my strongest like main DPS build for him. But I do plan on doing Thunder Soother, which ideally is essentially it's the same thing, but instead of Pyro, it's Electro. And it works really well with Beto and Fischl. Now, I have C6 Beto and C6 Fischl, so that would probably be stronger for me, but I'm currently just steering more towards that build. Now, this build works super well with Bennett. The synergy is like amazing. So, yeah, it's good, but I don't want to fully promote this because I don't want people farming for Lava Walker. It just happens like if you're going Crimson Witch and you have a couple Lava Walker pieces, yeah, this can work. So yeah, that's another option. So let's go to your main DPS weapons. First and foremost, you've got your 5-star weapons, Jade Cutter and Sword of Song, whatever it's called. Those 2 are definitely going to be your go-to. If you don't have those, I think the overall best balanced weapon for main DPS and sub-DPS is Black Sword. And it makes him a lot easier to build for crit damage, crit rate. Definitely a safe bet. If you want to run one of those main, let's see, Thunder Soother or Lava Walker, I would suggest Lion's Roar, which is really good. It also adds attack percent. Another good option is Aquila Favonia. It's high base attack. From what I've seen, it basically performs just as well as these other 2 when I was testing it out at level 80. And it was providing physical damage. It was kind of hard to test all of them and see, but yeah, it pretty much works well. You can still do Iron Sting, but I would say that's more towards your sub-DPS support kind of build. And you can do Skyward, but your plunges and your ult won't hit as hard as it would with these 3 weapons that are right here. So hopefully that's helpful. I did like a very in-depth video of all the testing, and it just took way too long. So yeah, hopefully this is helpful.